burned down or shredded yet. Hey, Cliff, what's happening?
Hey, I think we're live. We're doing it live. Remember, we used to do that, and we stopped at some point. And I feel our ode to the insane Bill O'Reilly really should continue.
With you. This is Amped Up with Cliff Schecter, and I'm David Shuster, and Cliff normally says Cliff Schecter's the better half, so I'm all about that.
I was going to get to all of that, David. Yes. Okay. Well, we could start over again if you want. Hi, I'm Cliff Schecter. You're
David Shuster.
Up with Cliff Schecter. David Shuster here, who's won an Emmy, as you all know, is by
You know what? I'm really fired up today, Cliff, because the number of the day is 5,700. That's the number of Epstein files released since last week that have a mention of Donald Trump, but it's not just one mention in some of these files. And when you add it all together, according to news organizations like the AP and the New York Times, 38,000 mentions of Donald Trump in the documents released starting last week. Now, Donald Trump...
But he barely knew him, you know?
Donald Trump says, well, I really wasn't friends with Jeffrey Epstein. What? I mean, at least say, yeah, I was friends with him, and then we cut it off, whatever sort of lie you want to come up with. They were the best of friends for 10 years. The documents prove that over and over. And for Donald Trump to now say, oh, I think we all need to just move along. Well, maybe the reason he wants to move along is because some of these files contain allegations that he was raping young girls. I don't know.
Yeah. And I mean, again, yes, these are allegations. Then there are certain no names attached to some of them. They still, this is the kind of stuff that the fact that this is even associated with a sitting president to the point of where, I mean, some of the stuff I don't even think I could say here. I can't say without feeling sick, but the kind of things he was doing with calendar girl, whatever, the 13 and 14-year-olds allegedly in there, and other sexual acts that appear in there. That he spent so much time with this individual that he sent him a birthday note that was purposely disgusting, that he, said, oh, Jeffrey Epstein, he loves beautiful women even more than me, and younger ones, or whatever it was, his infamous statement, that he owned pageants so that he admitted to Howard Stern on his show he could sneak in and peek in on 15 and 16-year-olds. I mean, again, yeah, sure. We don't have names on those other allegations. We just have plenty of stuff that we do know to be fact that Donald Trump's admitted, and we're not even getting into women who were of age that he's an adjudicated rapist for, E. Jean Carroll, in a case where he was found guilty. The 28, 30, what are we up to? The number of women have charged him with sexual assault or harassment. Sometimes, and that video of Amy's infamous video, of course, grabbing them by the whatever. I mean, at some point, there's enough smoke there that, there's
probably some smoke fire that's clearly enabled by, the sycophants around him. And the Department of Justice, I mean, think about it this way. The Department of Justice is still redacting, blacking out, or withholding the names of Epstein's clients, the men who were abusing, men and women who were abusing these young girls. But the Department of Justice is so incompetent that last week when they released these 3 million files, they didn't do hundreds and thousands of redactions on the survivors. In other words, the law said, release all the files, but make sure you redact the names of the survivors, the images of the survivors, the personal information. Instead, there's like 100 survivors who last Friday discovered the pictures of them being, from when they were little girls, the photographs of them, their personal information, their identifying information, their names are not redacted. And so they're getting death threats. They're getting all sorts of MAGA crazies who are saying, oh, you were a slut when you were a girl or whatever it was. But we still don't know the name. I mean, they still won't release the names of Donald Trump's friends who are abusing them. This is insanity.
Well, I don't know how it's just all of that. The fact, even the Justice Department releasing these they were girls, at least at one point. They maybe, even if they're women now, doesn't change anything. Literally releasing names, as you said, not redacting images and the rest. I don't understand how that's not criminal in and of itself. Probably is. I mean, these people, break the law before breakfast. If it's Pam Bondi's Justice Department, it's, hey, let's offer you, hey, you got any nice voter rolls there you want to give us so we'll stop killing people in your city? I mean, that's the Justice Department we're talking about, the one that appointed, what was her name, Lindsay Halligan, that you wrote all about.
Right. Former beauty queen. Nothing wrong with beauty queen, but she just wasn't qualified to be a U.S. attorney. She had no prosecutorial experience whatsoever.
It's just incredible to me that all of it, All of it is incredible. All of it. We were just talking with our guest who we were going to have on in a second, Ahmed Baba, who is fantastic. But we were having a conversation now. This is all stuff that like we would have watched in House of Cards, and it would have been like, yeah, sure, that'll happen. I mean, that's how much the world has changed in a decade plus with Donald Trump in office. Is, it's hard to come up with a conspiracy anymore. As I've said to people, in the Epstein files, you have the appearance of a Rothschild, Lady Lynn Forrester de Rothschild, whatever the hell. You have that he was on the bilateral, one of the lateral commissions, and he was on the Council on Foreign Relations. So pretty much, there's no conspiracies left unless we want to say that he controlled the weather too, David.
And by the way, Cliff, I haven't had a chance to sort of put this out on social media, but I circled back to some of the folks that I was speaking to, I don't know, a month ago, 6 weeks ago, about the Epstein files, and they confirmed that there are still, and the Department of Justice has acknowledged that it only has like 50% of the files have been released. So there's still a lot of stuff that they're holding on to, and members of Congress have been led to believe still by FBI, DOJ whistleblowers that there's still materials, videos, photographs that have not yet been released that are horrifying about Donald Trump.
Yes.
And so it's one thing for Donald Trump to say, oh, accusations in an email or my name, that's a conspiracy by Jeffrey Epstein. That couldn't possibly be true. It's another thing to say, well, that video and photograph can't possibly be true. And so, look, I wonder if the Department of Justice is ever going to release some of this stuff, because if it's this damaging. But clearly, there are whistleblowers who work for the DOJ, FBI, who say there's still materials being withheld in contravention of the law that are really, really bad for Donald Trump.
And people need to remember, let's get Ahmed in here because we need to. What we get? Still muted? Not muted now. How are you?
I am doing good, as well as I can amid all this insanity. How are you guys doing?
Same deal. It's like, I almost feel like it's like a roller coaster. I can be in a good mood and life can be going great, and then I read some of this kind of stuff, and it's horrific, and it's like, that when he was with the pageants and the in Russia and the stuff with these young girls and everything that actually just has been that we know to be factually true, it's he's most likely, I guess I have to still say allegedly, a child rapist, and all his family, all those people around him, his friends, whoever they actually are, who aren't transactional, whatever, like all these people knew all of this and were willing to get behind this guy for president and not speak out. And it also makes me wonder again, this could exist in the world of conspiracy too, but in House of Cards. But I'm sorry, it really does kind of make you wonder the various folks who were so anti-Trump and then just suddenly, right, just like after they hacked into the RNC, servers, which they never released, like the DNC. Amazing how quickly Lindsey Graham became his best buddy. I wonder what they could have had on him. But when there's with all the Epstein stuff, I mean, who the hell knows? The more, like, there's so many. I mean, Elon Musk a million times said, I didn't go there. I didn't go there. Apparently, he begged to go there. So, I mean, I don't know what to think anymore.
I mean, it's insane. Like, Elon Musk was the one who tweeted out the fact that he said Donald Trump's in the Epstein files. That's why he won't release them. Turns out Elon's in the files begging to go to Epstein Island. Begging to go to Epstein Island.
Can you make this shit up? I mean, honestly, can you?
You can't make it up. And it's insane because they built this whole conspiracy claiming it was going to take down this left-wing liberal cabal of pedophiles. And you open the files and, obviously there's some liberals in there, but I'm seeing Musk, I'm seeing Steve Bannon, straight up Bannon, like openly collaborating with trying to help Epstein out. There's all these other people trying to rehab his image. There's people in the UK. Someone from the House of Lords is in there.
Yep.
It's insane how interconnected this is. But I think at the very least we can say, I think with certainty now, obviously the other, the unverified claims are, they're unverified at the moment, but he knew what was going on. Virginia Giuffre was trafficked from Mar-a-Lago. Like, yep. we know, I think we can say that definitively.
And he was mad that he lost somebody who worked for him.
And the way he worded it too was like Jeffrey was stealing girls from Mar-a-Lago, and he's plural. Who are the others? Is that what's in the other Epstein files? Like, there's so many questions here that these files don't add, that they raise, but also this enough would end any other presidency, in my opinion.
God.
Just the association.
Let me ask you this, David. I want to ask you this, David, because again, like sometimes, I mean, you don't need to be a private investigator to figure out when you see certain patterns, right? There was an image that came out at one point at Mar-a-Lago of like him there was a sign on a girl. I'm trying to remember if it was a woman or girl that said like depreciated asset or something of that nature that was disgusting. Does that not sound exactly like the Calendar Girls accusations that these women would stand up and he would auction them off? I mean, to me, that those two things separately exist. One of those things we've seen an image of, the depreciated asset, kind of corroborates the other one, if you believe in the patterns of human behavior.
Well, and the patterns are not just, of course, with the images, but if you look at the vulgar language of the emails and the banter between Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein and Some of these others, I mean, Donald Trump, this was Donald Trump's world. I mean, we keep going back to the grab him by the P, Access Hollywood, audio tape from 9 years ago. This is how Donald Trump viewed women. It's become abundantly clear in the Epstein files and through the years. This is Donald Trump's view. It's sort of like
you're a star, they let you do it, right?
Right. He feels like he's entitled because he's rich and he's famous. He's a celebrity, so he can do whatever the hell he wants. And he jokes about it. He thinks it's funny. And the rest of us are like, no, that's not funny. And this is not how people should act. But this is how Donald Trump has always been. And now we're just getting it chapter and verse with emails and documents and data and photographs.
I mean, again, that's why so much of this, that he could have been elevated to this position not once, but twice. And that so many people who clearly knew so much would not come out and speak to these matters. Right.
And by the way, because I don't know if we've done a formal introduction yet, but Ahmed Baba, journalist, as you can see, political analyst, media tech. He's got a great Substack. He's done some terrific interviews about Minneapolis. He's written some amazing things about sort of international right-wing movements.
I just read that one, and that was incredible. You should go read and see his interviews and read what Ahmed's written anyhow. But the one where he put that out there, because again, and we're going to talk about some of that stuff today with Epstein too, is sometimes there's stuff that's out there. I'm not saying it's hiding in plain sight. Sometimes it is, but sometimes it's there. And again, it's patterns of behavior, right? You see, it's not just a one-off that Elon's endorsing, that whatever the ADF, whatever that crazy neo-Nazi party is. It's not just a one-off that, Seb Gorka had like the cross of the Nazi party in Hungary, the party that was formed from the remnants of the Hungarian Nazi party. He was always great in that group. They still loved him. Like you start adding it all up and it's like, yeah, you're fucking Nazis. Like you're not even hiding it, right? Like they're all this cross-pollination. Bannon went to Italy over there, and Giorgia Meloni over there, who's pretty far to the right. Even she is like, like that Donald Trump guy's fucking nuts. I mean, she's gotten to the point where after the Greenland thing, she's distanced herself, and she was always kind of like the one closest because that's the most far right government in Western Europe right now.
Yeah.
And today, I'll just say one more thing because we should discuss this. The French raided Elon Musk's office in Paris and apparently have found some pretty sick. I can't characterize yet because I don't know if what I saw is definitively accurate. But if it is, it's not so far off from Epstein Island stuff. So, I mean, what world are we living in? I don't know. I wish I had a better question, Ahmed, and I wasn't about to.
No, I mean, what world are we living in is a great question. It's one I think about. I try to answer every morning when I wake up. It's an insane world, and it's all interconnected, including the Epstein stuff. With now what we're seeing with the raid. I think it's because of Grok basically created millions of sexually explicit images of minors. On X, because you would ask Grok, undress this person, and then they would do it in spite of warnings from staffers. So that's gonna yield. We're gonna learn more about the decision making there and who let that out. But then also like Musk, being in the Epstein files, and then also the interconnected nature of the international support and backing of Epstein, and like there are people from across the pond giving Epstein tips on how your debt would be handled, weird stuff there. And then on top of this, now this interconnected transatlantic far right ecosystem that's been collabing for decades. We look at Brexit. Brexit was a prelude to Donald, And then even on
I was
top
there
of
that summer, Ahmed. I'll say quickly, I was in London that summer, and I just figured I'd ask folks like, cab drivers, whoever, and you would hear the same talking points to where you knew there was stuff being fed to people about Brexit that just was, if anybody understood basic economics, was such, was just horseshit. And then, we were, then the America First stuff was, I mean, that had already taken up, but even more so. And I came back here and it was the same thing. And it was
exact same things.
Yeah. And then we get a guy in the New York Times, like a week or two, Eric, whatever the hell his name is, writing, no connection found between Trump and Russia. And I was just like, you're right.
Yeah.
No connections were found, except for everyone. Like, I mean, except for Paul Manafort sharing polling information, except for Rick Gates, except for the what's his name?
Papadopoulos,
Deripaska. I mean, it's like the meeting in Trump Tower, the pinging thing to Alpha Bank, how much more could we really need and have for you? I mean, how stupid can you be to write that piece? And if you're a real journalist and you're somebody who is not corrupt, which I'm not going to accuse him of being, because I don't know what the answer is here, but how can you feel with all of that out there that you can write that piece? Like, what? I don't know.
It's anyone, one of the biggest revisions of revisionist history things is the fact that there was apparently no ties or no collusion. Anyone who read the Mueller report saw ample incidents of collusion, like you just outlined. So there's that. And that was also a part of this global collaborative far-right movement. I don't think it was because Putin had, dirt on Trump. I think it was literally, a collaborative enterprise, a fellow authoritarian helping another one. We see Hungary, for example. Yep. Kevin Roberts of the Heritage Foundation explicitly praises Hungary as a model for the U.S. far-right. Tucker Carlson loves Orban. Project 2025 was largely modeled off of what Orban did to the executive there. It's all interconnected.
Tucker even went over and interviewed Putin, and kissed his butt, and then Putin didn't like one question and insulted him when he came back, which I loved, by the way. But, everything you just said, and then throw in Erdogan and throw in Xi and throw in, it's.
And here's my question for you, Ahmed, because you mentioned earlier there does seem to be a connection between this sort of I don't want to say outright pedophilia, but there's a lot of stuff that operates in far right wing websites and digital spheres that are against the law. I mean, that a very sexualization of children and girls. What's that connection? I mean, how did that come about?
I mean, it's kind of like, it's the 4chan. I'm trying to create a term for it, but it's like how the internet is becoming 4chan, like the social web with the.
Can I ask you quickly, as you're saying that, didn't something just come out about Epstein being in contact with them too?
I think so. I think
the folks that run 4chan, that's what I'm not kidding. Like I know I just saw that, and I don't know enough about 4chan. I'm not well educated enough on it. You may know more, so you can speak to it. But okay, go ahead.
A lot of it is projection. A lot of it is projection, right? Like they'll project some cabal doing nefarious things that they're actually doing. And on 4chan, there was a lot of unmoderated content out there, child exploitation on there. There's a lot of stuff going on in 4chan. And what it comes down to is, I think there's like multiple tiers of people who are intermingling with Epstein. There's some people who just saw him as part of a social circle, and there's others who knew what was going on and ignored it, and there's others who participated, right? But I think overall, it's just this billionaire elitist cabal of people that are effectively like doing really nefarious things and then projecting those accusations onto others, and then also hoarding wealth for themselves transnationally, because we see Epstein had people in the UK tipping him off on moves they were going to make. Like there's this protection racket among the rich where they protect one another, and that we see that in policy. And then on top of that, the bottom side of that, which is that conversation that you talked about, the interview I had, the flip side of all of this cabal of the rich kind of protecting each other is they then legislate and create policy that makes themselves richer, the poor poorer, and then they scapegoat immigrants for being responsible.
Yes, they have
for
to find the people
pain.
to blame because they are attacking all of us. Let me see if this will work for a second, guys, because it's always me and I'm technologically challenged, so it might not, but I kind of felt like this was perfect. Well, maybe it won't. Let's see.
Well, so what I'm hearing on that is that, I mean, from a policy perspective, conservatives, obviously they want legislation and policies that will help them get even wealthier, and so maybe that helps sort of explain their conservative views on economics or finances. Fine, but it's almost like, well, when the wealthy get so much money and so much power, that along with it comes a sense of entitlement that the rules don't necessarily apply to them. So the rules that the rest of us happily follow about underage girls and protecting the sanctity of kids and all that sort of thing, they feel, well, that doesn't have to apply to them because they're so powerful and so rich. They don't need laws. And that's where you get the sort of the marrying of a moral depravity with the fact that they have this incredible economic power, which they use to pass conservative policies that help them get even wealthier.
Exactly. And then a step beyond that, which what we're seeing now, is you get oligarchy and authoritarianism. You get that ability to think you're above the law, rules don't apply to you. You can traffic these girls, you can do whatever. Epstein can get away with it. Epstein got that sweetheart deal from Acosta, who's now working in the Trump admin.
Right.
And he was only
in the Bush administration.
And then after tried to rehabilitate his image, it's a travesty. He would have been in jail for decades if he was not rich and wealthy and well connected. It's just facts. Or if he was black, he would have been. Doesn't matter if he was rich.
Well, yeah. How many people that were of color who sold a dime bag or something ludicrous, spent
16
God
years.
knows how many years in prison, and this guy got 18 months. And again, connections. Is it that he had obviously images and video of people? Is it? It's any sort of combination of things.
Yeah, he very clearly was interconnected. That's what really stuns me with this whole. It's exactly what we thought it was. I mean, there are obviously like more confirmed. Like I think I'm trying to grab his name so before I forget it. Steve, the one who's actually confirmed to have been Steve Tisch, the co-owner of the New York Giants, where basically was like asking for women, like a girl specifically. So it's like there's people who literally we see. Kash Patel said there was no evidence of girls being trafficked to other people outside of Epstein. Well, I don't know. Steve Tisch kind of looked like there was some evidence there. And it's like, it's just disgusting. It's depravity.
This is what by the way, I was looking for before. These people.
What is this?
Well, he brought up hoarding before, right? The people hoarding wealth. And I mean, I found at some point saw this online. I'm like, this is so perfect. If a man has an apartment stacked to the ceiling with newspapers, we call him crazy. If a woman has a trailer house full of cats, we call her nuts. When people pathologically hoard so much cash, they impoverish the entire nation. We put them on the cover of Fortune magazine and pretend they're role models. I haven't seen it said better than that. And that's why it just made me think of that when you said that like we should consider people who are trying to get $1 trillion payouts like to be sick. I mean, there's something wrong with you. There are people you're going in and destroying USAID, which there's a body count attached to that.
Exactly.
This man, I mean, I don't care. He has murdered children by getting rid of USAID, by an unelected Elon Musk, who begged to go to Epstein on going in and destroying this program. There are kids, there's all sorts of people, but there are many, many kids, I think in the hundreds of thousands, from preventable disease, from starvation, who are dead.
Yeah.
And we never speak about it in those terms. We try to sort of say euphemisms like, well, he caused a lot of harm. No, he killed people. There are people who are dead because this unbelievable asshole who hoards wealth and doesn't care about anybody but himself did all of this. And if I just think if we would be emotionally honest with people and speak in these kinds of terms, and that was what I was trying to deliver. There's estimate 600,000. That was the one I saw, which General Putnam has up here. That's that he estimates of the deaths from what Elon Musk did to USAID. I mean, that's a genocide, is what that is. He's killed as many people as Idi Amin did. So just sort of think about that for a second.
Yeah, I mean, it's the totally quantifiable harm, deaths that were caused by the gutting of the federal government at the beginning of the year, last year, is insane. But it also caused the backlash because of the people were appalled by what happened. And I think like Musk was the epitome of oligarch. It was like an Icarus oligarch moment. He just flew too close to the sun, had his little chainsaw on the CPAC stage, was rubbing it in our faces that he was firing Americans He was cutting aid that was killing poor people abroad, and then he's just sitting here, just like having a good old time and geeking out on ketamine. Like that's what they were putting in front of us at the beginning of the term, and I think that's why the American people are rejecting all of this, and we see it everywhere now. And I just think it's appalling, because you're right. Like someone who I can't put my mind. I get so disappointed, and I know maybe I shouldn't have hope in billionaires in the first place. But I used to be a fan of Musk back in the way day, when with Tesla and SpaceX, and I used to.
Well, it seemed like especially Tesla. It seemed like he was doing good.
Yeah.
Like I mean, I wasn't a fan of his because he was a billionaire, but I was a fan of his because it seemed like before he ever opened his trap, that he actually was doing something that would help the earth. And now we all know that had nothing to do with that. It was an opportunity.
Yeah, of course. And my point is, I'm not saying I still have any faith in billionaires, but it's just like I used to work in tech, and I used to, I just don't see how anyone can have that much wealth and not like wake up every day just trying to solve problems. If you have trillions of dollars, why aren't you out here trying to resolve homelessness? Why aren't you
Mackenzie Bezos? She's fantastic.
Why aren't you doing what Mackenzie Bezos is doing? And meanwhile, Jeff is out here just, cutting documentaries for Melania in exchange for what? He was with Pete Hegseth, so I guess he wants defense contracts for Blue Origin. Like, it's just all quid pro quo.
Like 12 people have watched that documentary, $40 million. I think that's what it was. So he spent the same amount on that ridiculous documentary that he spent on his second wedding, where he and his wife, which I like to make sure to point out to everybody, at this point it's arguable with the two of them whether they have a majority of their original parts of their bodies left or they're majority cyborg.
I guarantee for you, Cliff, I guarantee that the photographs, the cinematography at his second wedding was a hell of a lot better than he got in this documentary. I mean, there's much more of a narrative in his second wedding than any sort of narrative we got in the Melania movie, but that's a whole other topic. I want to ask you, Ahmed, because you mentioned sort of the connection with sort of racism and all this and bigotry. And I've long sort of felt that, human beings just sort of, I don't know, have this sort of nature of hatred. I mean, I'm one of these people that you feed human beings hatred and it does something for them. And that's why, oligarchs, and that's why the autocrats and the horrible people of history have given normal people something to hate in order to distract them from the plundering or the stealing of the money. And I almost sort of feel like that's part of what we're seeing now, right? That as Donald Trump and the oligarchs and the billionaires try to enrich themselves, in order to distract the rest of us who are dealing with bills or dealing with a society that seems to sort of be crumbling, blame that guy. Blame the guy with dark skin. Sure. Blame the guy who speaks Spanish, and keep us occupied with that blame while the wealthy folks do this horrible stuff to enrich themselves. Am I wrong?
No, that's exactly what it is. They create the inequities that we deal with. They create the economic pain. They create the K-shaped economy. They're getting richer, poor getting poorer. And then they go ahead and blame, oh no, it's not us who are giving tax cuts to ourselves and cutting social programs,
subsidies and regulations.
No, it's actually that random brown person down the street that's powerless. Blame them. And it's the same exact thing we've seen time and time again. And it's why it was so shocking as someone, just who knows history, watching Donald rise, because he's using the exact same tactics that every single demagogue has used in human history. Hitler did it with Jews. It happens time and time again. You blame a demographic, you scapegoat them, and then you weaponize people's hatred towards them. And I think I personally think hate's taught, though. I do think people are innately good. I'm just too optimistic, but I think like they teach this hatred and then they weaponize it. And again, like it's a system that uphold from the beginning. It's been about money. The slavery was about oligarchy. The South was an oligarchy.
Yeah.
It was an authoritarian oligarchy.
They wanted to make lots of money, and they certainly didn't want to work.
They called slaves lazy while they didn't want to work. Like it's just it's all around.
Well, I agree that I do think most people are innately good, but have either of you seen the movie Nuremberg? Because I just saw it over the weekend for the first time.
David, you hurt my feelings. I wrote a piece. No, I'm just kidding. But right after I saw it, I wrote a piece on it because it was when we had bombed Venezuela, and or not yet. We were bombing the fishermen, and my whole point was, here was Robert Jackson and the Supreme Court Justice and Truman and these folks who created a system of international law where Hermann Goering, the very embodiment of evil himself, and by the way, if Russell Crowe doesn't win a Oscar for that. I mean, that
Didn't
was
get nominated,
incredible.
unfortunately,
But the embodiment of evil, they kept saying we could just line them up against the wall and shoot them, but we're not going to. We're going to give them a trial. While Pete Hegseth couldn't be bothered to give fishermen, who he claimed, of course, were drug dealers, and because I wrote a piece just trying to line that up and say, look at where we are now to where, go ahead. David.
Well, I was going to say where I was going with this, and good point about Goering. What really stood out to me about the film, and I encourage everybody to see it, although it's really disturbing, is it's sort of one of the main characters is a psychiatrist, right? A therapist who goes in and tries to understand the Nazis. And at the end of the movie, and I'm not going to give this away, but at the end of the movie, he makes, there's long been this historical argument. What the Germans did, the Nazis did in World War II, was it because they were Germans? Is there something about the German people, or is there something that exists in every nationality, in every nation? And the psychiatrist makes the argument at the end that this isn't just about the Germans, that even in a place like the United States, there's 50% of every society that would be happy to dominate, to throw away democracy and liberty if they could dominate the other 50%. And it just took me right to sort of where we are now, that I do agree with you, Ahmed, that I do think most people are good. But I also think that there may be as many as 45% of Americans who would happily throw away liberty, throw away democracy if they could have their way and dominate people who are different from them.
I mean, I think it is something innate to, and it's maybe not about as much domination as just kind of cultiness, like a tribal nature that sense that people are easily led down. But yeah, no, I mean, I think the percentage is decreasing though. That's one thing that I do think that's happened. It's like where I think our multicultural democracy is kind of like proven right. I mean, if you look at Minneapolis and the beauty happening over there, and if you look at the rising up against slave catchers, with white mobs of Northerners would go and try to free one black man from a courthouse and literally send him to Canada. Like there's decency. I think
just look at what Alex Preddy himself was willing to do.
Exactly, Alex Preddy. He had a gun on him. Alex Preddy had a gun on him, and he didn't shoot.
He could have just shot at them and said he tried to shelter a woman.
He kept his gun holstered when he was even when he was on his knees before he was shot. And again, I just think, I think you're right that there is a significant percentage we see, in our own history, because, we talk a lot about Nazi Germany, but Hitler had a portrait of Henry Ford in his Munich office.
He also quoted the Confederacy in Mein Kampf as one of that was one of the models for what he wanted to create. I want to say quickly, because I think you both are right. I think if you look at human psychology and all the studies they've done, and some of the stuff, I studied a lot of this for things that I did in school, the Milgram experiments, if you know what those were, where they'd ask somebody to keep torturing somebody else, and they would sort of give in because they were being given orders. They thought they were electrocuting them. They weren't in the end, but they thought they were, or giving them an electric shock. The Stanford prison guard experiments, another one. We have enough examples. I think the problem is, and Drew Weston who wrote the book The Political Brain, and he's kind of been out there and talked about these things. The problem is that as we evolved, we do have all these new, abilities, obviously reason, compassion, and all this, but it didn't take the place of the old stuff. The old stuff's underneath it. The amygdala is still there. And so the problem is that I think we're both. I think we are capable of immense acts of kindness and beauty, and we are capable of immense acts of evil. And they've shown education to be one of the sort of bulwarks, one of the things that can block, them accessing demagogues, your amygdala and all that. I mean, not for everybody, obviously. So we have evolved in that sense, but it doesn't mean, because, no one can argue that the psychiatrist or psychologist you're talking about, David, whose name I can't remember from the movie, played by what's his name, Rami Malek. Think of what we've seen even since then. Right. What we've seen with Stalin, what we've seen with Pol Pot, what we've seen with Idi Amin, what we've seen with, there have been genocides with, what's his name in Bosnia, from Serbia, in Rwanda. Clearly, sadly, that part of our brains can still be accessed by those that wish to commit mass murder. And sometimes we can stop them those, using the newer parts of our brain, using reason, but the bad stuff's still there, I guess would be what I would say.
Yeah, I mean, and I think, and that was one of the things I was going to get to was like, I think it is right that there's both of those parts in all of us. Like I think we have to make a reaffirming choice every day, which side of our humanity we're gonna dive into, because if we evolved. We've only had technology at this scale for a few decades, right? Like we're getting stuff that a human brain is not evolved for. We have, it's really insane. And also I think that's why leaders matter so much, because it's not in the culture that you're raised in, because if you're raised in the Jim Crow South and you normalize racism, you're gonna think that's okay. If you grew up in New York in 2026 and you're around Black people and Mexicans all the time, and people from Somalia and people from Asia, and people from everywhere, right? Like it's okay. But I think also,
in fact, you realize it's better.
Exactly.
The more
the multicultural,
it is like
more food, more culture,
the food's
more
better. The festivals and
Exactly.
marches are better. But like people are, why I love having someone like you on this show. Not even because you're any kind of different background or whatever, but because I didn't know you before you're on this show, and you're an interesting guy. And if you want to meet interesting people, then you should want there to be people from every background, right? If we're all the same, it's kind of boring.
Exactly. And that's just the final point I'm trying to get to, is that it matters so much who's at the top. Like it matters who is speaking at the top. When you have Barack Obama up there, a Black man talking about how much he loves America and how much we all should think about what's connecting us. And I'm telling you, if Fox News didn't exist, if there wasn't a thing that was giving voice to the extremism and the bigotry during that time, where would we be? If there were still the big three, news networks, we all had commonly agreed upon facts at one point. We can watch one instance at Selma, Alabama, and everyone's paradigm is shifted, and LBJ gives a historic speech. Like that stuff doesn't happen anymore. We have everybody. I watch Fox News play Renee Good's killing, the same video we all watch, and describe it as something totally different.
Right.
And it's like that's why the media,
they did that quite
matters,
purposely, right?
Leaders matter. The president matters. Yes, they did it purposely.
Roger Ailes,
we have to ice them out. We have to ice these people out. We have to build better media ecosystems and better leadership structures on the liberal end to push back on all this, because it's insanity.
And it gets more challenging as the more segmented our society becomes, and the more segmented our media becomes. It's harder and harder to sort of grab people's attention and have that consensus. And the other thing I was going to get to, which is, I think the other part that sort of bothers me about all of this, is that I was reading a column the other day where somebody was describing how in the first couple of years of World War II in Nazi Germany, unless you had a son who was in the military, your life was not that different. You still got together with your friends. You still sent your kids to school. You maybe went to the cinema. You went to listen to music. There were restaurants. I mean, you could sort of have kind of a normal life, at least for the first couple of years of World War II. And the point being that even when fascism has arrived, you're not going to see it with, flags and Nazi swastikas and these giant rallies in the streets day after day and the crazy patriotic music or whatever it is. Your life might seem pretty normal. And I look up at so many parts of the United States, and life does look pretty normal, but there's fascism that is here.
Yes.
Right.
No, exactly. And it's here, just unevenly distributed. Ezra Klein always says that. And I think right here, one of the things that I will move to a positive front on this, because I'm really hopeful actually by what we saw in the elections last year, what we're seeing in Minneapolis, because I think while we're fortunate that the administration is just like a couple notches more incompetent and stupid than they are evil. Like they're they're tripping over their own feet.
It's hard because it's a race. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's like a one-legged, like sort of sack race where you have to kick yourself in the ass the whole way. But,
exactly.
But in the end, you're right. I do think incompetence and stupidity wins out over evil, even with them.
And it's like, maybe it wouldn't be as much of a pushback if you didn't dress them up to look like the Gestapo, or maybe it wouldn't be as much of a backlash if you didn't send out DHS recruitment, ICE recruitment memes that were literally quoting white supremacist propaganda. Maybe it wouldn't be as much of an outrage if you weren't doing exactly what we've seen every authoritarian regime do in history, and do it explicitly and in our faces and loudly and stupidly. Maybe you didn't have Elon Musk with the chainsaw. We wouldn't have known Doge was happening. If you had Russell Vogt implement Project 2025 like I thought was going to happen, you wouldn't have had your approval rating drop by 20 points, or the tariffs. Maybe you would have had a better economy. Again, the stupidity, the foolishness of this egomaniac in the White House is our best weapon. And now we've been able to use that to our advantage. All pro-democracy forces, people out here in media and on the ground, Minneapolis, everywhere. It's when you have people with this much hubris, like you can really use it against them. And we're just lucky he's not as smart as as Hitler was, for example.
Well, and look at who he surrounded himself with too. I mean, you just brought up an interesting point there. I mean, people would call Hitler a buffoon and this and that, but I will say, the portrayal seems to be. I'm sorry.
No, I was saying still a little smarter than Donald.
Well, yeah. I mean, to say listen, the portrayal is one thing, but if you read about it, Hermann Goering was actually a pretty smart guy, evil, narcissist, all of that, but a pretty smart guy. Are we going to say Pete Hegseth is? Are we? I mean, Pete Hegseth's own mom wrote a letter about how much what a dick he is. I mean, I mean, that got released. Kristi Noem,
dick with a capital D,
right? A capital D, dick. Kristi Noem shot a puppy in the head and then thought it made sense to brag about it in a book. These are they're not just horrific. They're morons. And so I do think that he's chosen purposely to surround himself with people that make him feel at home. Has been, there's no doubt that that's helped us, because even when Trump has a really stupid idea, my guess is that then Hegseth is like, yeah, that's a good idea. And Noam's like, yeah. And Kash Patel is like, yeah, that's a great idea. Sorry, I'm an asshole, but I can't help it.
No, that.
There you go.
Honestly,
Cam Bondi's like,
Kash Patel
boss,
jokes
that's
are
a great
totally.
idea. And I mean,
again, yeah, when you prize loyalty above everything else, you get a Lindsay Halligan, you get a Kristi Noem, you get people, you get Kristi Noem who just can't read a room. You get total fools. And Stephen Miller, he gets all this praise as being a genius, but I'm telling you, this man is just as dumb as he is smart.
Yes.
He cannot read a room for a second. He is charmless. He has negative Riz, whatever Riz is. He has the opposite.
Yeah,
of that.
exactly.
He puts people off.
I'm
shocked.
A broken fan.
And again, this is why I think Trump is not who he was in the first term. I think he's diminished because I am shocked he let Musk go on for longer than I thought. And Stephen Miller, you're still letting that fool whisper in your ear and letting you tank your presidency. Right. You're really doing that, man. First term Trump, as bad as he was, he still had some tether to the ground. He wasn't totally insulated as he was in this term. He had Gary Cohn in his ear. He had
there are semi-normal Republicans,
and he listened sometimes. He listened. We were Gary Cohn. Who knew Steve Mnuchin was like Spider-Man 2 in the train, holding back the tariffs single-handedly from us, right? Who knew that Steve Mnuchin and Gary Cohn were we're preventing economic catastrophes, right? But
and probably McMaster's and what's his face, Mad Dog, which is a cool nickname. I have
Mattis, yeah,
Mattis. Honestly, we're probably no, Greenland's stupid. Don't even say it. Whereas these guys are like, let's go bomb Greenland. There'll be no repercussions from that. You're right. I mean, there were at least some people that were they were somewhat semi-normal Republicans, who were, in fact, I need to confirm, but tomorrow I'm going to ask you this question at some point, but we're supposed to be having Miles Taylor on to discuss, because obviously
Miles is
a big
great.
fight over cybersecurity and all that, because he wanted to actually protect electoral integrity, and that's not something Donald Trump tends to favor. Which really is a good segue to the next point. I mean, so I agree with you, man. I've got the optimism in terms of how people have come around, how people have reacted, how we've united. Some of those videos of Minneapolis singing these songs are beautiful. They're fantastic. But my one worry, and the one I keep bringing up, what I wanted to have Miles on tomorrow, I'm going to be asking other people. And again, I know this isn't your area of expertise. It's not mine, but I might as well ask it. My big worry here is we look at what we just did in Texas, switched 31 points and won in this huge Republican district. Look what we just did we did in Miami. We hadn't won the mayor's race there because Cubans were reliably Republican. They've even managed to lose the Cuban population, which took many years to do. But they know this obviously because they're going and busting into Fulton County. They're demanding voter rolls, even when they got rejected, thankfully, from Minnesota. Trump just said we should nationalize federal elections and before said we shouldn't have them. Like January 6th did happen. He did plan it. Jack Smith said that. My worry here is that these are dress rehearsals, and you look at the 4 guys who were just arrested. Everybody talks about Don Lemon; he's the most famous. But they arrested a state Senate candidate who now may not be able to still run. Well, what if we're getting close to the election? What is our plan, and who do we need to put together a plan so they can't claim terrorism's happening at that polling place and just shut it down? So they can't claim that person just broke the law with something they said, at a protest. That person running for U.S. Senate who's going to win who's a Democrat. Any of them, name any of them, Sherrod Brown or Roy Cooper or whoever it is. We're arresting them. They can't run for office. This is what worries me: is how to stop them from that.
No, I mean that's a totally understandable worry. I mean, again, we're once again lucky that Donald articulates his every thought, so we know what they're planning, right? So what we can do is mobilize, I think, especially a legal network. I mean, you have Mark Elias there. You have, I'm sure Miles, with his Defiance Fund, they're going to do, maybe might pivot to do some election work there too. But I think you need mass mobilization and readiness to file fast, rapid lawsuits, because I think the courts are going to be the things that really have to hold during that time. If he tries all this stuff rapid fire to target the elections, when it comes to nationalizing the elections, I mean, the article literally it's in Article 1, Section 4, like it's right there. It says like the states run it, like it's the first article. And he talks about those first few articles all the time, but he didn't read that.
You have to explain that to him though. You'd be like, listen, Article 1 means it's the first, and it
means it's important.
just keep all of your words like unisyllabic, and perhaps he will get it.
Yeah, and I think he's gonna make attempts. But I really think it all comes down to how last year was handled. I think the Supreme Court matters a lot. I think I would be much more worried right now if Donald was at 50% approval rating. If he didn't touch the economy, if he didn't go buck wild stupid last year, and right now and literally embolden federal agents to murder people, I would think, okay, maybe we're in a position where Chief Justice Roberts and Coney Barrett might greenlight something. But I really think SCOTUS is watching. Like I heard how they were talking about the Lisa Cook case, like talking about Fed. Like I heard Kavanaugh talking about Fed independence, and I was like, okay, like not all of you are unitary executive pilled. Like I think there's something here where I think he's burned so much goodwill that institutions aren't going to be able to won't hopefully fold in the face of his what it will be midterm interference. And I think it's going to be the courts, it's going to be the people, it's going to be federal election workers. And we already saw this play. So I think we're going to know what he's going to do. I think we have people like Mark Elias and people out here.
I think that's a big part of it. But I want like ex-judges. What's the one who goes after him all the time, the conservative?
Yeah, Ludwig, I think.
Michael Ludwig.
I want Michael Ludwig talking about this the way I want someone like Miles Taylor talking about it. Honestly, I don't tend to believe that, I think our tradition of military staying away from elections is a good one, as military it usually equals coup in most countries. But honestly, right now, the fact that we talked with what was it, Bree Fram, who had where McChrystal spoke at when they were the trans members of our military were kicked out at their retirement, I guess they called it or whatever, and when they were being forced, and he said, I don't even know why the hell I'm here. This is ridiculous. I honestly I want folks like that. I get it. Normally you're doing your duty in a democracy that you shouldn't be using that power in a way that affects things. But right now is like break glass in case of emergency. I kind of feel like anybody on the national security, legal, regular people, obviously, but I want everybody, we need to be talking about this and we need to be formulating a plan, because I don't want to just hope it works out okay.
And sometimes it does work out okay, right? I mean, to take it back to Minneapolis, and this is, I wanted to ask you earlier, Ahmed, you interviewed an organizer in Minneapolis. And given the context of the news today, there's Tom Homan, the border czar, who was dispatched to Minneapolis saying they're going to draw down troops. Well, that's a victory, in a sense, for the people of Minneapolis, for the people of Minnesota. What jumped out to you about the organization, the response to these killings of Peretti and Renee Good, and how people got together?
Yeah, so actually, I just wanted one clarification. I interviewed, he's the executive director of Common Power, a Seattle nonprofit. He flew in from Seattle with indivisible groups and someone from Katie Wilson's team from the mayor's office, and they went there to kind of learn from people on the ground. So we're seeing, interstate transactions of lessons learned, which is cool. So we're seeing.
Can I ask you quickly? Are you based in Minneapolis, or did you
fly? Oh, I'm in Brooklyn. I interviewed him.
All right.
Live.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm in New York. Yeah.
I'm a New Yorker originally. So.
Oh, nice. Yeah. So I from here got the insights from him, and I'm telling y'all, Minneapolis did beautiful work, and the way it's interesting, like they're now starting to get uniform. They have like red caps they're wearing. They have these whistles. They have now a license plate tracking situation there where they're trying to make sure unfamiliar cars are tracked, and if it's ICE, they notice it. I saw on our live someone literally pulled up to his car to basically check if he was ICE or not, because they were about to put him in the license plate database they have. There's rapid mutual aid. We see a church that is there doing incredible work. They asked for 40 cars to send mutual aid out to Latino families. 100 cars showed up. They didn't even have enough inventory. It's like the way that they're mobilizing in this community is insane, and it's reminiscent of how people mobilized against the slave catchers back in the day,
and against Jim Crow.
Yep. And it's beautiful to see. And again, it worked, although it was horrific, and it ended up, costing the lives of Renee Good and Alex Peretti. Those people were they were heroes. They were literally doing what
they should have statues, and I think they will in that city when we're past all this, because yes, nonviolent. Remember what happened to former congressman and late Lewis, who almost he had his head bashed in and almost died, but he was willing to, that was a sacrifice he was willing to make, and others were, because we knew that that nonviolence works. Which is why
I just wonder, Cliff, to take it forward then, to move to your point about the elections, if there's a way to take the lessons learned from Minneapolis, the organization, the communities getting together, that communities can now replicate that to protect the sanctity of our vote, and to make sure that we're not intimidated at our polling places, and to make sure that federal agents are not pushing people off the ballot or making it difficult for people to cast their votes.
Exactly what I was thinking. Coming away from that and then having this conversation, I think we need that same kind of grassroots community organizing, and then you can alert. We need to be almost instantaneous alerts of voter intimidation. Oh, there's federal forces here. Oh, there's ICE at this polling place. And then you mobilize. You be able to get the right people in contact with the right people. You can get lawyers. You can get election attorneys to maybe be on the scene, or you can get Mark Elias to file a rapid response lawsuit, right? And I think if we create these networks,
and even if you get some people to show up at that polling place, maybe stand around, almost form a circle. I mean, I know they made some of these things illegal. Don't give them water or anything.
Oh yeah, of course.
But to try to maybe protect folks from violence, and show them, or even just show them in spirit you're there with them.
There's community activation that we saw in Minneapolis that we're going to see in other states. And again, it's just beautiful to see because it's in the spirit of the civil rights era. I just gave a speech at the MLK Day celebration in Wisconsin at the Capitol.
Wow.
I don't know why they asked me to do that. I was shocked that they picked me, but I went there and I gave a speech. And
because you're pretty smart and know lots of stuff, would be my guess.
You walk around with a cheese head?
Yeah, no, I was on the dais with the cheesehead. Yeah, no, but I was there, and I just all this stuff has been connecting for me. Just thinking about the history and what happened in the '60s and the late '50s, and it's happening here again. And we have so many more tools now. We have instantaneous communication. We can mass organize. And again, I still firmly believe, I think especially after how last year went, that we're not in the reality. I'm leaning more above 50-60% that we are not in the reality where Donald is dictator beyond this term, right? Going into this term,
I'm not sure he's going to make it.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Well, there's that. Well, that's also one of the reasons.
And I'm not sitting here wishing anything, you national security people who want to come arrest me. But he does have purple blotches in places where some people don't even have places. So I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm optimistic. I think the American people are fighting back, and I think Republicans are about to get absolutely demolished. It's going to make Watergate and 2018 midterms look like child's play. I think
that's what I was thinking. Crushed. I want FDR.
Yeah,
I want FDR, and that's why quickly, before we go, we've got a couple minutes left, but made the promise here that we were going to tell some people stuff that isn't being talked about, that isn't out there, so that about the connections to Epstein. And people should know that the man, if I am getting this correct, from this lawsuit, had 164, I believe that's the number, different accounts with JP Morgan, where, I'm sure there was no money being laundered and they couldn't have figured out exactly, such that the U.S. Virgin Islands sued him. And here we go. So you should know, folks, that this was a bank, a large financial institution, a large faceless corporation supporting Epstein in his rape of children. And JP Morgan Chase had to pay in the U.S. Virgin Islands $75 million to settle a lawsuit. It should have been a hell of a lot more than that. They claimed that they had provided financial services to Epstein from 1998 to 2013, ignoring all warnings, that they actively helped him conceal his funds. So that was that was one group. It was important to me to get out there. And then, as part of this connection, there are these two billionaires, the Dubins. One of them is Glenn Dubin and his wife, Ava, of course, or Anne Marie, who had a hedge fund, and of course were flying to Epstein Island, and guess what? Somebody here took care of his hedge fund being sold to JP Morgan, and that was Epstein. So Epstein, you have this cabal of billionaire predators working with right-wing, corporate institutions who do not care what is happening to young girls. And there are your two billionaires you never heard of. Memorize their names, the Dubins, because these people get to just walk in between the raindrops and nobody ever says anything. JP Morgan Chase, know about them, and know that when I said a presidential candidate too, and this one's personal for me here, that the Dubins supported with $100,000 donation to a PAC, a guy named Vivek Ramaswamy, who is running for governor of the state of Ohio. I live in Cincinnati here. So those are the three things I promised you would know by the time this is over. The bank that most enabled him, some billionaires you'd never heard of that most enabled him, and a Republican presidential candidate with ties to Epstein through that you hadn't heard about. So now you guys
two numbers. I got two numbers to give everybody because I just had to look this up the other day. You mentioned, Ahmed, the 2018 midterm elections. Democrats had a net gain in that election of 41 seats. Watergate, post-Watergate, 1974, was a net gain of 49 seats. I'm with you. I think right now, if the election were held today, I think Democrats would pick up 50. Obviously, a lot can change between now and the next 9 months, but I think if it's a free and fair election, I'm right there with you. I think there's a Democratic tsunami that's coming that would enable all kinds of amazing stuff.
Honestly, David, after that one in Texas just now, I mean, and with some of the candidates we have running, or great candidates, and we certainly have had. I mean, it seems like in every Senate race, you just see Vindman get in down in Florida, the way Mary Peltola got in Alaska, and I think. I mean, I'd have to look. I looked and talked about it in a piece that I wrote, and I've now forgotten. But FDR, it was 70-something seats, and I'm not saying like we should be happy with winning a solid majority. I'm just saying when you're looking at switches like we're looking at, where you're not safe in an R+14 seat, that would create problems for them. That's why we need to
Ahmed, where can people find you?
Well, yes. I'll say one thing just to add to that, if I can, just so that I think we will see that, and then hopefully we will be in the reality where we are then in an era in 2028 where we get to redefine, restructure, and basically refound the country and do anti-corruption laws and rebuild the government and do what we need to do, because we could be in a really hopeful era if things go right afterwards. But where people can find me,
you're exactly right. If you think about, and again, I'll give the info because I know David's got to run and get the kids. But if you think about where we've had some of the most change, sadly, it was stopped at the end of Reconstruction. Didn't last as it should have. Didn't go where it should have. But after the Civil War, during FDR's time with war and with depression. It's horrible what's going on, but it creates the situation where we know this guy's found the loopholes. He's found the things that were just tradition, that weren't in law. We need to create new institutions. We don't need to go back to where we were. We need to go forward, and we can do that if we win with big enough majorities. So now I'll kick it to you. And I have to say, you're awesome. Having you on has been
thank
incredible.
you. No,
please
I love hanging with you guys. We're gonna do this more often. David, I'm gonna let you go, do what you got to do. But where you guys can find me, AhmedBaba.news. I got it right here. My Substack, that's probably the best place to find me and support me. You can just subscribe. And then also I'm on socials. If you just Google me, Ahmed Baba, you'll see my Instagram, my Twitter. I'm still on X, but we got Blue Sky, we got Threads. I'm everywhere. So
great having you on Blue Amp Media and joining us. A real pleasure talking with you, and just an awesome show. Cliff Schecter, well done again, my friend. We'll talk to you guys soon.
Thanks, David, for being here, man. Take
Great
care.
to meet you guys.
And Ahmed, I'll just say quickly, let's definitely do this again. And if you have a spot at your place, I'm always happy to join you. We'll absolutely have you back on here. Again, just so folks know, tomorrow we've got we should have Miles Taylor. I need to confirm. Well, it's been confirmed, but cell phones and such, I need to 100% confirm. He has said yes. And something really cool, which maybe you'll even appreciate here, Ahmed. I don't know. We'll see. But tomorrow night, we're kicking off something I've been looking forward to for a long time, Tequila Talk, where I will be co-hosting with Joe Walsh, who we used to insult each other on Twitter constantly and have become good friends, and both love tequila. And it will be the kind of show at 6 o'clock tomorrow evening on Blue Amp here. It's the kind of show where exactly you made me think of it, because you're like the positive stuff. Joe and I can complain a lot, scream a lot in our various places, but it's going to be a show where we're going to try to laugh and be positive and look at what we've accomplished that's been good that week, and go into the weekend during a happy hour on a Thursday night talking about tequila and talking about the betterment of our country and making jokes. And I don't know if you drink or if you're a tequila drinker or any of that, but we'll have guests on here and there. So,
that sounds like a good vibe, man. Honestly, like that's what we need. That's what
we want, that vibe, because these other shows, right?
No, that's a good vibe. No, I mean, and just like casual talk about that's what we need more of. People over drinks, just kind of figuring out how we get out of this hellhole. So good stuff.
Thank you. If we don't have like some good tequila and we don't laugh our asses off and at least give people some hope, then I will say we failed in that episode. So that is going to be planned every Thursday at 6. Thank you so much. Seriously, this has been one of the really a great show. And we will be in touch. Ahmed Baba, everybody go to ahmedbaba.com.
Appreciate you guys.
The man is talented. You're going to want to see more of him. And as I always say to you when we're done with these things, my friends, thank you for being here. Thanks for supporting us. And as the sun sets slowly in the west, we bid you a fond farewell.